Hey there, welcome to On the Road to DevHops. I'm Trace Bannon. I'm an architect and engineer, a bit of a dev nerd, and I've brought my sparring partner along again tonight. Bryan Finster, would you like to intro yourself, sir?
Yeah, I'm Bryan Finster. I'm a developer.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So, Bryan, we call this On the Road to DevHops because you and I grab a drink. It's evening and we kick back and we just chat about a topic that's been gnawing at us a little bit. What do you
Yeah,
drink?
because in vino veritas, right?
Oh, that's true. And tonight I have in fact stepped over into the Veritas in vino. So
I'm going for the low carb alternative, which is a Russell's Reserve bourbon.
the name of my wine, dare I don't know if I okay, I'm gonna be bold.
I mean, we're at the bar. Come on.
Okay, that's true. So this is the Ménage à Trois, and it is the Gold, which is a Chardonnay. Obviously, Ménage à Trois. They have three different grapes that they blend together. It's a varietal. Don't sell it at Walmart in my neck of the woods, but it is not too bad, not too expensive, but good enough. Low carb Chardonnays are relatively low carb, but not as low carb as my new gin drink that I told you about last time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and with that, I want to talk culture. Let's talk culture.
Yeah, which one of us has more culture? Because I'm drinking a nice Kentucky bourbon.
I don't know. I actually have mine in the correct white glass. I did not put it in a red
Okay.
bowl.
I also have mine in the correct glass.
Okay, well, I have a coaster. Does that make
Okay.
me?
All I have is a Platform One challenge coin that I use as
Oh,
a
oh,
receipt.
yeah, platform one challenge coin. So I don't. It depends on how you define culture, doesn't it? Doesn't it? And it's driving me crazy lately. I don't know how many meetings this week alone. It's what, Wednesday? How many meetings have you been in where people have thrown and bantied around that they need to change the culture? I'm just going to change the culture. I'm actually getting tired. I'm tired of hearing DevOps, tired of hearing Agile, tired of hearing cloud. I am now getting tired of hearing culture. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, people throw it around, that's for sure. Or sometimes it's just implied we need to change it. I think the question I have is why should we care, right? I mean, why do we care about culture at all? Um,
Mm.
I'm a pragmatic developer, not just a developer. I'm a pragmatic developer,
Does
and
that mean you're negative?
no, no, not at all. It means that I'm mission focused, which
Okay.
means I'm like, okay, our mission is to deliver this value to the end user. And we need to do whatever we can to make ourselves more efficient, more effective, and more sustainable as we do
Okay.
this.
All right.
Right? Right? I mean, those things are very important to me because if we're efficient, it's less painful, costs less, so it's just better for everybody. If
Yeah.
we're more effective, if we're more effective, then it's going to makes the end user happier, and we have fewer defects. And if we're
But
sustainable about it, we're not sleeping under our desks.
well, that's true. But I keep hearing people talking that they need to change the culture, change it, first of all. So I have an
That's
issue with changing the culture. But to your point, tracking back to why does culture actually matter? I mean, sometimes we'll say, well, everybody wants the developers to be happy. It impacts your productivity and your quality. All
no, and
true things.
and the contra to that, I've heard people push back and say they're not here to have fun.
Oh, well,
This is a
I'm going over that way then. I'm out of here, right?
Well, but both of those things are true at the same time.
Well, agree. So there's a blend, there's a mix. I mean, at the end of the day, there's regardless as to whether you have architected it or not, whether you've been deliberate about it, every organization has a culture, right? It has a way that people interact with each other. It could be tyranny and negativity, right? Everybody's under a tremendous amount of pressure, right? Go faster, go faster, go faster, with none of the other controls or help or air cover that you need. On the other side of it, happy shirts, Hawaiian shirts, that doesn't make a culture, doesn't make you automatically have a happy day. I do appreciate wearing my t-shirt today is my my gets today. So I do appreciate that when I'm with my kindred spirits, being able to be authentic.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's a blend, right? You can be productive without wearing a trendy t-shirt. Um, what makes culture, in your mind when you think about it, what makes it valuable, to the leaders, to the people? Is it really just make me happy and I'll code well?
I mean, if you get a crappy culture, you're not gonna be able to retain people who are good people, right?
Okay.
You're not gonna, if teams are under stress all the time or have to fight through bureaucracy just to get anything done,
Hmm.
then they're focusing on that instead of what they're delivering, and so quality's poor, the throughput is poor, we deliver slower, um, and then of course if we can't retain people because the culture sucks, we have to keep retraining new hires who come
So
in.
there's a cost. If we start to track this back, let's both be pragmatic. If we start to track this back,
Yeah.
we want quality, we want speed with purpose, we want to deliver on what the value is, what the mission or business value is. And we're going to be able to do a better job of that if people are not stressed,
Right.
AKA if they're happy. And that comes with building a culture that allows them to be that way. Now, here's a question.
Hmm.
I was in an office recently, went in and guys were in Hawaiian shirts. Everybody was everybody had their kids in their different kicks on. It was dripping with stress. It was dripping with stress.
What,
So
even with Hawaiian shirts?
even with Hawaiian shirts, that's right.
Wow.
And they had free beer. There was actually a fridge, free beer. No
Mm.
joke. No joke. Now I got to say the quality of the beer was suspect, but that's another thing. My point in all of that is
Yeah.
you can help people to have the external, right, the external trappings, right? We're going to have a nice open spaces, and we're not going to have cubes, we're going to have white mark boards everywhere. We're going to really have a nice external trappings, but ultimately people can be very unhappy. How can we tell when our teams are happy, when they are being productive based on that happiness, or not being productive based on the happiness? Is there a way to measure that?
There's actually several ways you can measure that. And actually, I'm writing a paper right now for IT Revolution Spring Journal, talking. And the name of the paper, working title, is How to Misuse and Abuse DORA Metrics. But it talks about metrics as a system, not just DORA metrics.
Okay.
And and if you actually read Accelerate, they have metrics in there that you can actually track. What's your turnover rate?
Okay.
Right? I mean, you can track turnover rate. You can track how many hours are being worked after working hours.
Mm-hmm.
You can track how many hours people are working a day or a week. Are they working 60-hour, 80-hour weeks? That'll burn people out.
Well, now I would
But
say with the
there's
60, 80
direct.
hours, I mean, for that one though, you got to understand how passionate your people are. Because I got to tell you, I have one team. I stayed because they were there, but they were having fun and they wanted to be there. So that can be a little misleading. But as you're talking
Well,
about some of the quantitative measures, there
let
are
me
other
finish.
qualitatives too,
No,
aren't
wait,
there?
let me address that, right?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
no metric is true in isolation.
True.
I would consider 60 hours a week constantly to be a warning sign. Now, if
True.
I go to the Gemba, if I
Hmm.
go to where the team is and I observe how the team is working and they're having fun 60 hours a week and they just want to be there, that might be okay. But I
Okay.
would still caution them, hey guys, I just want to make sure that you don't feel pressured to be here this long, that you take time to recharge. You can't just work at this constant high pace all the time without burning out.
Right.
You need to make sure you're taking time for yourself. But yes, there's absolutely other things you can look at. I mean, you can ask the teams. If you phrase surveys correctly, and you don't live in just a nightmare culture where people live in fear and don't want to answer
And
surveys, right?
yep.
But
Yep.
if you have surveys that are focused on how the health of people, right? How do they feel? Do they like working here? Would they want their friends to come work here?
Hmm.
Do they feel like they can trust their management? Things like this.
Well,
And just kind of get a view on those things. And then you can track over time. How are we doing?
Well, that at first, I mean, the very first thing that you're talking about is, I always liken everything to architecture, right? Where's my baseline? Understanding, getting into that team situation, understanding how they work with each other, getting situational awareness of the numbers that we just talked about, right? Measure turnover rates, measure the hours that people are working per week, but also have that observation going on. Surveys may help. Surveys it depends on the existing culture, what you're finding with that first go round, whether or not people are going to be really open about it. Sometimes, to your point, people are very fearful of surveys, especially if yeah, that's anonymous. Well, sort of, kind of, yeah. Right?
And
There's fear.
that's true. And if people are afraid, and you're like let's say you're a new executive coming into an organization where there's a culture of fear, and you want to make this better. Well, I mean, first you have to demonstrate trust, and it will take time for that trust to be returned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But then you start building that. But you touched on something earlier about people wanting to change culture, and the way I don't think you can change culture. Culture is an outcome of the environment you're working in.
Exactly. You
Right.
can build new culture together, but that's building a new culture together. It's not coming into your house. I said this to you the other day. Like, if you come into my house, sit at my dinner table and say, we're going to change your culture. Your culture really needs to change. I'm going to be like, well, there's the door, my friend. You're out of here.
No, I mean, and the way you do that is like, man, developers are under a crap ton of stress. The teams are just getting burned out. We're getting people rotating all the time. We should sit down and find out why. And instead of changing the culture, hey, what if we make it so you don't have to work as hard to get the same amount of work done? And you aren't completely buried in support issues because we're giving you time to fix things instead of just feature. And then the culture improves. And hey, what if I sit down with you and like work with you instead of just telling you to go do stuff?
Wait a minute. I'm going to use some trendy words here. So are you saying maybe we need to display some empathy and provide an environment that has psychological safety so people can be honest? I mean, I'm being a little smarty pants about it, but those words, while they're buzzy as well, there's truth to being empathetic. And for if you're the leader, or even even if you're not the leader, being able to be publicly empathetic with others, openly empathetic, starts that journey, don't you think?
It's funny. I was doing an Ask Me Anything earlier this week, and the topic of being a people person came up, right? Because to have empathy, you have to be a people person, right?
No, you don't.
No.
No, you don't at all.
Well, empathy is a learned skill, right? And even if you don't in your heart feel empathetic, which I often in my heart don't feel empathetic, I just seriously don't.
Okay.
But when you're working on how do we help the team live better lives, deliver better stuff, help the end user, we're improve the entire organization's value delivery. How do we do those things? Then this is one of those leadership skills that you must grow. That like I'm not a people person is not an excuse. That's just a failure on your part to grow.
Well, they say fake it till you make it. I don't like the term, but it applies here.
I don't either. Pretend you're good at it. Right? Because fake it till you make it. There's the blog, yes, Jenny Larson. She ran into this. She said, I was doing my first audiobook, and people kept telling me to just fake it till I make it. And then I talked to Neil Gaiman, and he said that just puts too much stress on you. Just pretend you're good at it, right?
A little bit of the same, but I see the differences in the words.
It assumes that you're going to make it, but just pretend you're good at it. Practice the skill of empathy all the time. And I can speak from experience because, again, I am not a naturally empathetic person. This has been a skill that I work on constantly because I know I suck at it.
But it's if we're being honest and we're being, totally blunt about it, if I'm in a leadership role, if I'm not a particularly empathetic person, I can still model that behavior.
Yes.
To affect in a positive way those people, because I do want them to be happy, And the reason that I do want them to be productive and feel a sense of psychological safety is I need that software at the quality that I need it to reduce, additional costs. I don't want to pay for extra turnover and training. I don't want to be onboarding constantly. I don't want that defect to make it into my environments. I don't want the cost going across my environments to go up. So if I'm being honest, and it's okay to be honest, I'm going to emulate. I'm going to, what did you say? Don't fake it till I make it. Pretend that I'm
Pretend you're good at it.
pretend that I'm good at empathy because I've got a stake in the game, right? I've got skin in the game, rather.
Well, and there's small things. A story I like to tell about something that I had to change in me for the team I'm on to deliver better. I grew up old school tech lead. I'm in charge. Do what I say. Do it my way, and don't argue about it.
Okay.
Right.
And
that's very common, right? Except that doesn't work when you're trying to implement continuous delivery on a team, because
Right.
CD is a team sport. It's not something a dictator can make happen.
Exactly.
And I saw a blog post a long time ago that really helped me on my journey. It was The Pragmatic Architect, and it says, as a pragmatic architect, you have veto power, and if you use it, you've lost. Right? And how do you exemplify the behaviors you want on a team that you need a high level of teamwork required for continuous delivery? You let people win. We have two solutions. We have mine that I've looked at and I like, and we have yours. If I can't come up with a reason why mine is dramatically better than yours, you win. We'll use yours.
I see. I like that approach. I take that with my teams. I am a typical architect, engineer. My solution's the best one. My way is the best. However, our delivery is better than my delivery, right? Our ability to work as a team, right? Moving from I to we in all of this. So you're spot on that we have to get away from our own. Well, it's a little bit of muscle memory because we didn't start developing 5 years ago. Just a wee little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's
more than that.
It honestly, you'd be surprised how little time it takes to go from dictator to collaborator, right? Is that all I have to do is focus on, if I bring everybody's ideas in and we spend a little bit more time talking about it, people feel valued and we deliver better.
Exactly.
And I can be completely pragmatic about it. My goal is to deliver better. So I'm perfectly happy to just suck it up on the inside, have more conversations early on, let people get their ideas out, and then let people use their ideas unless it's going to drive us right into the ditch. Because we can always modify it as we go forward.
Exactly. Especially if we are take agile, lowercase, an agile mindset, right? Experiment, be willing to change. Nothing is set in stone, and that's okay. That's hard for folks because they depending on the individual, some people like to have some scaffolding around them that's consistent. They don't like as much change as is happening. So that can be a little unnerving. I was thinking about, this idea that you're going to come in, you're new in as a leader, and you want to understand, you really want to understand. And so you get down and you're hanging out on the floor with the gang and you're getting to know everybody, and you're making sure that you're not hanging out up in that office somewhere else. You're part of their life. As you look at how they're working, are there other patterns? Are there other negative patterns or positive patterns that you say to yourself, oh, we're going to have to work on this one? Is there a mentality or any kind of mindset where you're like, oh gosh, we've got to break that pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, people don't talk to each other. I wrote a blog post. It was like the very first blog post I wrote, and it was in collaboration with one of my teammates. And it talked about metrics. It was like metrics is the first one.
That's a thing for you, metrics.
It is. It's my favorite topic right after test architecture. And we listed several metrics. I don't remember all of them, but one was it was a metric around how many Slack memes are happening on the team.
Okay.
Right. It's just how playful the team is on chat ops.
Okay.
Right.
How about when you come into a situation and they've been more of a startup and they're starting to grow. They're starting to scale. One of
Mm.
the things that I observe, and I think you and I have talked about this in the past, is that there can be kind of this heroism kind of thing that's going on because people are pretty
Yeah.
proud, right? When you're all, we are, maybe they are working really well together. Maybe they have that initial thing, right? They are off off the onto the side. They're all working well together. They're doing this thing. They have that first victory out, and there's a rush that comes with that. And I'm finding, at least for one project that I'm working with, they have a certain adrenaline that comes with that. And so they get into this heroism, right? They get into this Superman. They've suddenly have to
Oh
um
yeah, it's super addictive. I've been a firefighter before, and not in a startup, just because I was dealing with customers that needed they were not happy with the
mhm,
company I worked for, and I had to go play firefighter. Um, you know, I was actually talking to a friend of mine at lunch today who works for a company that's moving out of a startup and trying to move into sustainable delivery, but they still have those startup habits where people are just kind of thrown at things. You're single sourcing development on one
mhm.
person to get something done, and they've lost control of their inventory of what they own. The what's running in production is your inventory, right? And
Right,
they've lost
right.
control of their inventory, and he's like, how do we get it back? And if you've got that culture, that startup culture, you need that initially. But if you don't pivot to something sustainable and build
Mhm.
resilient teams, you'll just success yourself right into bankruptcy.
Well, it doesn't have to be just in the commercial sector either. And so I see this with a couple of the software factories that are around in the government space.
So you
They
might
did,
want to you might need to explain to the non-government people what a
what a
software
software
factory is.
factory is. It's essentially a startup, but it's in one area of the government. It's not following the traditional rules. They might be given a little bit of a pardon and told, hey, you guys go on over there. We're not going to look, but you guys try and solve this problem and make something good happen. And once they do that, like a startup, and they've had some kind of initial success, they usually had to step on a couple of landmines. They definitely have some scars from what they've gone through. Then they are asked very, very quickly to scale. The software factories often are funded differently than other kinds of programs. They are very dependent upon their digital platforms. Neither good nor bad, they just are. I'm making sure that they have that, but that's a very different mentality than what we've seen in the past. So they operate like a startup to start. And that revolution, right? As Jonathan Smart likes to say, from sooner, safer, happier, going from that revolutionary approach to a success that can be sustained and then scaled. That's that transition where it is fuzzy, where it is wonky. And actually, that's where I worry, where some of them may implode, where they won't
Yeah,
be
there
able to make that
here
transition.
here there be dragons,
That's right. Yeah.
right? And you have to have it. It takes discipline. So
Mhm.
if startup, you basically have no discipline, and you have to quickly learn discipline to scale.
Well, your discipline as a startup is sheer willpower, right? That's your discipline is, do I need to sleep?
Right.
No, I don't need to sleep. I need more coffee. We need to
And
keep going,
that
right?
working 60, 80, 100 hours a week is fun for
For
a
a
little
very
bit.
small amount of time.
For a
Um,
little bit.
for someone who has actually slept beneath a desk, yes, I can attest to this. I no, it doesn't matter how old or young you are, it ain't comfortable and it
Yeah, it
doesn't get you
sucks.
much. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
does. It
No,
really
I've
does.
spent many long hour in front of a computer with my brain just like fried, just
Mhm.
wishing I would die.
Well, that gets you into a whole nother conversation about, there's a reason that there's a 40-hour work week based on the Industrial Revolution, based on how they were measuring when people started to be less precise and injuries started to happen. Well, there was a really good article that was done. I think it was by the IEEE, someone within the IEEE, maybe about 7 8 years ago. And they applied the same kinds of logic to knowledge workers, and they found the same types of mistakes. Maybe not you're cutting your hand off in a machine, but you're making mistakes over 40 hours because you are less attentive to what's going on, right? There's a reason that there's a 40-hour week.
This is kind of tangential, but I ride motorcycles long distance,
Hmm.
and there's tricks you have to learn to ride a motorcycle long distance, because you can't ride as far on a bike in one shot as you can in a car.
Hmm.
Actually, you probably shouldn't do this in a car as well, but the tricks you learn are things like no matter what, just stop every 2 hours and take a
Yep.
break. And if I stop every 2 hours on a bike and take a break, every 100 miles, if I just take a break every 100 miles, I
Hmm.
can ride almost forever,
Yes.
right? But if I push myself, I'll burn out after like 6, 8 hours.
Yeah. Same concept, same exact
Yeah.
concept. So, all the things that we've talked about so far, culture is a very important piece, but it is yet another misunderstood word. To think as a leader that you can come in and speak, this is what I want our culture to be. We are going to be relevant and trendy. We're going to be empathetic, without the actual trappings, without putting in the effort, without
So,
allowing people to be honest. You can't speak it into being.
so I think that we've talked a lot about culture change. We've talked about what bad culture looks like. I have a specific goal of the culture that I want to work
Okay.
in. And I think that's the takeaway I would like, for me, I would like to leave people is the culture that I want, right? Number one, what is the mission that we're on? As an organization, as a team contributing to this organizational goal, what is our mission?
Right.
Is a mission that I can buy into. Is everybody on the team bought into this mission, committed to this mission? Do we have ownership of our portion of the mission where people aren't just throwing stuff at us?
Mm-hmm.
People are saying, help us solve this problem. We're like, we're on it. We're going to help you solve the problem. Because I get entirely demotivated if you just throw work at me. But if you throw problems at me, I'm super motivated to help solve those problems, right? And so that's the culture that I would want to work in, is that we have a highly motivated team that likes working together, right? That everyone is trusts each other, that we're talking all the time, so problem solving, no one's afraid to ask questions, and that's the only teams I want to work on, and it's the only teams I have worked on in a long time, and I won't work on any other kind of team. And any team I'm on will be like that, or I'm going to leave the team.
We're breaking up a team that I'm on right now, and not because it's negative, but because the work is done. We have conquered what we needed to do. And there's actually a sadness. We got together to talk, and we're like, well, what are we going to do? Because we are moving on to completely different projects in different program areas. This is not simply I don't use the term simply, it's not a dev team only, but it's that same kind of synergy. So, we're hitting up that Slack all day long. We are posting memes back and forth. And as we are moving on, we're actually turning back around, and that channel is still open, and we're still sharing stuff like, hey, you wouldn't believe what just happened. Hey, this is relevant, because you build a
So
bond with people, right? You build that bond. And I don't want to call it family. It's not necessarily the same as family, but they are your workmates. There's a reason that they call them your workmates, because they are the people that you
let
are
me let
tethered
me
to during the day.
let me add on to that. All right, the very first team that I was on, this is a team when I learned I had to be a better tech lead, right? And we built this high culture, where we're Slack memes going back and forth, and people doing, Slack reactions, creating Slack reactions from teammates, and
Yeah.
all this different stuff. We created a Slack org outside of that company, and we're still talking, and that's
Mm-hmm.
been years. We have, and most of us don't even work for the same company anymore, right? And we still are having that ongoing conversation. We're still a team.
That is what I think any leader would want, regardless as to their ultimate motivation. I don't know of any leader who would truly say, I don't want my people to enjoy one another's company. I don't want my people to be truly invested, bought in, taking ownership, and passionate about our business mission, or our overall mission. I don't know anybody who would say those things. That there wouldn't be anybody. If they were, they'd be crazy, right? Those natural progressions, it kind of reminds you of a freshman class, right, that goes into college, and they get everybody together, and that freshman group goes through a bunch of different events together, and they form a bond that is with them throughout their college career, but it goes on always, because they have formed a bond because they went through things together. Those teams that we put together and we help, right? We help them. We facilitate that culture build. They're going to form a long-lived team for us, we hope. That's also excellent for the enterprise. The particular project I'm talking about, we knew that it was specialists, different topic for another day, being brought together for a very short time. We were not being brought together, as T's so that we could be there for a long, long time. We were very specific. We needed to come together, but there was still that bond that was there. So help your teams to create those bonds, demonstrate the behavior that you want, be authentic and honest about why you want them to get along, right? We don't have to sing, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. You can say, guys, we're going to do a better job if we can get along. We're going to do a better job if, and be open about it, but then be happy when it happens. Be supportive and happy when it happens. But you caught something earlier that I don't think people often track back to when they talk about culture: ownership, autonomy to make decisions, and ownership.
Well, and ownership means ownership of the consequences of those decisions.
Correct.
It's a balance.
Yep.
Right?
It is. And, I'm okay as a leader saying to my team, this particular decision is so impactful. I want all of your inputs. I want us to make a joint decision. Ultimately, I'm going to have to carry this forward. There are times that you have something that is that critical. In general, no. In general, my people, those folks that I've hand selected, that we've brought in together, and they've brought in their hand selected others, man, I want to delegate to them. I want to build trust with them. I want them to make decisions. I want them to. Don't just tell me, assign to me. Oh my goodness. Don't assign to me what my decision has already been made. You have nothing to do. Just sling some code, please.
Now, I wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about anti-patterns on how to absolutely kill good culture in the cradle.
Okay, go for it.
I have a couple right off the top of my head that
Okay.
I personally witnessed.
Okay.
All right. First, individual productivity metrics. Right?
Why not? I want to know your defects per lines of code for you. I want to know how many defects on the last sprint that we had. I need to know it about you, and I want to compare it to Bannon because I think she's a better coder.
Yeah. If you have 10 people and you want to have 10 teams of one, what you do is you track individual productivity metrics.
Exactly.
The other thing that you can do is you can stack rank people on a bell curve, so that people are actually competing against each other for monetary gain. That's another good way to just kill it in the cradle. I posted a blog post, well, not a blog post, but I posted a LinkedIn rant recently about a former employer's practice of stack ranking people and then tying that to your annual bonus, and how destructive to a long-term culture of collaboration that went on for decades.
That's the key. Long-term. You and I are talking about something that in the tech world right now, we're real struggling with. If the average tenure is less than 2 years at any one place, I actually want people to take it a little bit longer than that, maybe 3 years, maybe be together at least more than 6 months, right?
This particular company, I was relatively short timer at 19 years. And the culture was absolutely destroyed in the last 5 years because of the decision to tie an annual bonus that was supposed to be based on company performance to add a personal performance multiplier to it, which was completely based off of subjective manager opinions and their political clout to promote you in the calibration meetings, right? So these activities like this are the best way to destroy or to kill the prospect of having good culture right in the cradle.
So Bryan, we are butting up against the end of my drink. So with that, I want to toss out a couple of references for folks. We'll post these in the comments below. We really want to hear from people. We want to know what you like about our chats, what your thoughts are, Please give us your feedbacks on that. We'll put a couple of references out there. I have a blog that I wrote about educational diversity and building a team that has a lot of different types of individuals that are there so that you can get away from too many specialists. Bryan, you have a great blog post. I think there was one on, was it Darwinian, DevOps, Darwinism?
DevOps Darwinism.
Okay. And there are also two other posts that we'll add. They're not, one is a book, Team Topologies, I highly recommend for folks. And you brought to my attention something that I have forgotten about, which is People Not Tech, that talks very specifically about human debt as opposed to tech debt, and how you can leverage that, the knowledge of that to try and transform your organization to have those, well, that positive culture where you really want to be there. So, and with that, thanks for joining me tonight, Bryan. Cheers.
Yep. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Tracy. Bye.
You're such a bad egg. Oh.
No, I just stumbled over words because I've had a full glass of bourbon now.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.